Hello. First of all, as a director of Decision Lab Mülkiye project, I would like to thank the Rectorate of Ankara University for their scientific research project support, which gives us the opportunity to establish this laboratory. I also thank to my colleagues in my faculty and our dean, who give valuable contributions and supports in the implementation process of this lab. And of course, I present our special thanks to my PhD thesis co-advisor, Professor ALESKEROV, since he accepted our invitation and for his valuable contribution to our laboratory. He's a professor at National Research University, High School of Economics, Moscow, and head of Decision and Choice Analysis International Center in his university. And he's a member of Russian Academy of Science before he was a professor at Moscow State University. I believe that his lecture, which will begin in minutes, is going to give us a clear vision and perspective for the decision-making problems and their possible solutions in social sciences. They established with his team a decision lab years ago in High School of Economics in Moscow under the leadership of Professor ALESKEROV, and he have achieved many valuable researches under his supervision. Today in his lecture, we requested him to share their experiences with us as well. Now I'm giving the words to him so as not to take his time so much. At least at the last 10 minutes of his lecture, you can ask your questions or write if you want to the conversation part of the Zoom platform. We are listening to you, Professor. Thanks a lot again. Fuad Hocam.
Evet, thank you very much, dear Yetkin. Özür dilerim, ben İngilizce konuşacağım çünkü terimleri Türkçe hiç bilmiyorum. Şimdi, well, I will talk about the applications of decision analysis, although we have a lot of fundamental works in theory and in different various subfields of decision theory, but today I will talk about these applications. And please, although Professor Çınar said that you can ask me at the end questions, but if you have some problems with understanding some things, please interrupt me any moment you wish. And these are several projects which I would like to discuss with you, which was made during these several years, and not only in these last 10 years, but even before. Very successful projects. We did many of them, and we still proceed to make. So let me go one by one. This was the project which Holding Metro, with their headquarters in Düsseldorf, Germany, asked some British firm to help them, and the British firm found me, and we did this work for Holding Metro for one country in Europe. I cannot say which country because of the NDA agreement. And the question was the following, you see, to find the efficient ways to work with consumers and the analysis of consumers' life cycle, etc. So you can see these various things. And in fact, you see, I would like to tell you when we work on some applied problems, I never work in the problems where I have to take some data, put them into some known model, and then get some answer. You see, for me, it's too boring. And usually I prefer some projects where I have to create some new models And I did it many times. And this first thing was that, first of all, this segmentation of consumers' data. And I'm sorry, I didn't have English slide. This is meat. Can you see my I point out this.
So at this moment, we cannot see the slides, but
you cannot see the slide.
No.
Yes.
Why? I'm sorry, but why?
Did you share?
Sorry.
Okay. Now we can see.
Yes.
Oh, you can see now.
Yes. Yes.
I'm terribly sorry. Wait, but I cannot do it for full screen. That's strange. I change it. Can you see it? Change the slide.
Yes, Professor. There is no
Yes.
problem.
But I cannot make it for the whole for the whole screen. It doesn't allow me to do it. But you can see it, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So let's go this way. So this was as I said, for Metro Holding, and the first thing, which was to segmentation of data. These are, it is written in Russian, it's meat, fish, vegetables, I don't remember even all of them. And we constructed a so-called algorithm of tunnel clustering, which was, you see, the retail shops of Metro with more than about 1,400,000 customers with 400,000 goods. And it was necessary to separate them and understand which groups of customers, you see, we have. And here you see it is written here 1,200, but it is a limitation of Excel. In fact, behind it might be 200,000 customers, for instance, or 400,000 customers. And we created this very algorithm of tunnel clustering, and it worked very fast comparing with classic algorithms of clustering, which why we need to create this, because classic algorithms worked on this very data. First iteration, 4 hours and a half, you see. So I said that nobody will pay us if we will work on this project 5 years, you see. But this very new algorithm worked 15 minutes, something like that. And after we found this very segmentation of data, groups of customers, they did it, they were very happy, saying that they can now give them discounts for specific groups of customers with respect to their consumption. Then the next problem which they asked us to do, it was the life cycle. This is, you see, these are real graphs, time series, you see, for different types of customers. But in fact, you see, it is very difficult to recognize which type of customers we have looking at this very real-time series. And I invented the specific, this is a real-time series, and I invented the very specific mechanism, let's say, model of some integral evaluation of time series. And this is the view. It goes, when it goes above this diagonal, then this means that the consumption is above some average and below it is below some average. And these are different types of customers. These are growing customers, stable customers, and living customers. You see it's below this diagonal. And these are real data. These are stable customers, stable but volatile customers, and these are living customers. And it was really interesting to, when we get this, results, they were very happy because they say that they will address these living customers with specific discounts, specific offers, etc. And then we look at the efficiency of goods. These are the model we did to construct which goods are efficient, and these are results. They wrote us a letter afterwards saying that they expected to increase the profit for 4% at most, but they got in some cases about 10 or 9 or 10%. So this was the work with retail customers for a very big retail network. Then the second group of works were, in fact, I started to work on this very problems in Turkey when I was in Boğaziçi University, and Yapı Kredi Bank and my good friend Hasan Erçel asked me to work on this very problems. And the first one was efficiency of branches, how to evaluate the efficiency of branches. Then came the problem of loyalty of commercial customers, analysis of competitors on the market. It was done in Moscow already. Attractiveness of regions for the development, and I mean development from the point of view of the bank. It was also made in Moscow. That was another story. But today I will not talk too much about banks, and I would like to switch on the location of the branches of a trade firm. This is very, I can say that, provocative for students when I tell them this very problem, that we discuss how we evaluate this very location, where to open a new branch. And naturally, it depends on the density of population, income level, intensity of customers flow, and location of competing shops. And I did it for some cities in Moscow. These are real, not Moscow, sorry, in Russia. These are real, so for some big firm. These are real map of the real city, and this is the density of population. This is the income level of people, which was really rather serious problem to collect. And I did similar work in Italy. And it turned out that for income level, for instance, in Italy, it is impossible to ask how much money earned ALESKEROV last year, for instance. It's forbidden. But to take some map and of the city or of some region and point out some district in this very city, for instance, and ask what was the average income of people inside this very district, it is possible. And I was really impressed with that very work in Italy. They did it almost in few minutes, you see. The very similar thing, we did it in Turkey, in Istanbul. In fact, this very income level was evaluated by managers of the branches, you see. In Italy, they did it almost immediately, you see, just putting this, pointing out the districts around the branch, and immediately got this very income in this very district. So in Moscow, it's naturally we don't have such kind of thing, but still we with very indirect evaluations we could get this income level. Customers flow, it is evaluated by the analysis using gravitational models, but by analysis of all bus transportation network. And these gravitational models in general, you see, they work it's really hard problem, you see, to put it into the computer. And many years ago, something like 20 maybe years ago, maybe even more, I did some algorithms for approximated evaluations, these very gravitational models, and they work very fast. And so for even big cities with 1 million population, that algorithm worked with all kind of this transportation network. It worked about 2.5 hours, something like that, but it is approximated solution. Okay, and then here you can see they're put in different colors, these competitors of these very types of shops, and colors means the level of competition. In fact, I had to put it into some small areas, you see, which attract people to this shop, but I didn't do it because not to confuse people, listeners. So you can see these shops, and then when we have this, when we have this 4 maps, we integrated them into one map and show the best places to open the new shop. And after that, we can apply some other models, for instance, not models, some criteria, like, for instance, the cost of the place, the rent, etc., etc. So that was another problem which was successfully solved. Another problem is that, again, it is for trade efficiency of the retail network. Usually you see when I did such kind of thing, for instance, when I did it for Italy, it was the bank which had more than, I don't remember exactly, about 3,000 branches all over the country. But we did it for one only region. You see, just I gave them the technique. You see, after that they extended it to the whole country. And here it was the same thing. This company Svyznoy has shops all over Russia, but we worked only on 159 shops in Moscow region, not in Moscow itself, but Moscow region. It is surrounded region, surrounded Moscow. So, and the problem was to construct the mathematical models to evaluate efficiency of these very shops. And what was very interesting, we constructed it. It is I can talk about it more than 2 hours. You see, but what was very interesting, in fact, that contrary to their beliefs, we did not find any relation, any dependency between, for instance, size of the shop and sale level. or sale and number of employees, sale and the number of front windows. You see, they strongly believed before this very study that they are dependent. We showed that they are not, and found really important parameters from which these sales are dependent, you see. For instance, the location of the place. And we introduce some categories of this very location where it is more efficient to locate the branch of this very shop. Okay, again, I would like to say that if you have some questions, please interrupt me any moment. The next serious and very wide group of works was the analysis of living conditions in settlements and regions of Russia, not only of Russia. I did it for some small district in Istanbul, well, not very small, but still, you see, not for whole Istanbul, but for some districts. I did it for some districts in Spain also. Okay. And what is the idea? Idea is very simple, you see, that, well, the idea is simple, but the realization was not so simple. You see, in all our, let's say, at the regional level of administration, you see, or in cities, towns, even below, lower levels, people confront, our bureaucracy confront with some problems, you see, and there are problems where they can spend money, they can apply some measures, but there are so many problems and so many measures that to solve it just without applying some mathematical tools is almost impossible, you see, because it is too complicated to solve this kind of problems. And so that was the reason why we did it. So, you see, oh, sorry. Can you see here? I can read it. From where these very problems come. For instance, unemployment, pollution, how to improve education, infrastructure, and how to use the best use of available budget and come to the balanced regional development. It is really serious problem, you see, specifically in large regions where we have many problems and many different measures and on different levels to apply these measures to improve the situation. You see, ecological problems, etc., etc. And how we do it, first of all, naturally, it's a preparation of data, analysis of the situation, and we find this, let's say, bottlenecks. For instance, if it is a demand of transportation, we find what kind of measures might be applied to resolve this problem. Then we make this scenario analysis, you see, having in mind, for instance, if it is transportation problems, because of the, let's say, growing of population in different districts of the city, for instance, or region, how it might change this very, sorry, demand for transportation. Then we make this scenario analysis, and with respect to this scenario analysis, we come to some decisions. And this kind of thing, we did it for many different problems for ecology, for schools, for instance, where to open new schools, etc., or even we did it for very serious, very big, very serious problems in terms of total development of the region. These are some of the projects, not only you can see here, it was years ago in several regions in the Ukraine. We did it for resort area for Azerbaijan. It was maybe 30 years ago, and it was accepted very, with very high interest for government of Moscow, etc. Please, if you have questions, just ask. No questions, okay. Then I would like to switch, and these are the new works which I started just several years ago, and it was started with the call from the vice chairman of the Central Bank of Russia, saying that we try to analyze the connections, the activities of interbank market of Russian banks, and we apply standard tools of network analysis, centrality measures, and we get some counterintuitive results. And then I said, okay, well, we did for central bank several works according to their request, and always there were very, let's say, very good results were obtained. And so I said, okay, I will think about it. And these are classic centrality measures in networks. I don't go through them very in detail, but degree centrality is, for instance, if we consider this, the whole story about networks started in 1920s in the United States, when sociologists started to study the relation in the classes of the school, in schools, among people in the classes, among students in the classes, and found that people, I mean, this pupil, are separated with respect to their race origin. You see, whites are WASP, try to separate it from others. Spanish origin people also are separated, etc., etc. And then again, it was a study again in 20s, at the end of 20s, about the marriages in small towns in America, and they found approximately the same ideas concerning the marriage, that people are rather separated in terms of race. And now today, because of the very high development of computers, we can solve much more serious problems. And just to give you an idea how these very things are working, for instance, degree centrality, if we consider, for instance, the relations among people in the university, natural director has a lot of people under him, yes, and inside universities there are no people above him, so his degree centrality in terms of arcs or in terms of relations with other people is highest, so he's the first person. If we take a dean, for instance. Dean has one person above him, or maybe several person, vice rector, etc., and many teachers, head of the departments below him. So that was the number of people who are above him and who are below him create this very degree centrality in different versions. I will not go to in detail, but the next parameter, eigenvector centrality, which I like very much, it does not, degree centrality does not take into account to which extent the person with whom I am connected is more, let's say, important or less important. Eigenvector centrality is evaluated using this linear algebra methods, and it takes into account the importance of the people with whom people are connected. Okay, and the others are these are, you see, explanation. In fact, you see, I can send you this, or I already sent, I think, to Yetkin Bey this very presentation, so you can look at this. But again, coming back to this request of the vice chairman of the bank, I started to, first of all, to read this literature, and I understood very interesting things that several parameters, they were not taken into account before. For instance, parameters of the nodes. Although Newman, one of the classics of this very models, of this very theory, openly wrote in his article of 2004 that we have to take into account the parameters of nodes, and I created some kind of model in my mind that, for instance, that assumes that I borrow $1 million from some large bank and then do not return it in time. This very large bank will not be very happy with this, but it will not be destroyed. Yes, it will not go to the bankruptcy. But if I borrow the same $1 million from the small bank, some regional bank, and don't return this money in time, then it will lead him to bankruptcy, right? So parameters of the vertices are very important, but nobody, in fact, took it into account before my work. And another very important thing is that suppose we take two people, A and B, borrow from a small bank $500,000. You see, if one of them returns, the other one not returns this debt, bank will survive. But if two of them will not return, then again we have the same $1 million and the same story of bankruptcy, which means that we have to take into account group influence of the vertices to the vertex. This thing never was taken into account, never. And finally, it's called, sometimes it's called domino reaction. If I get from bank some money, then I give to somebody, he gives to somebody, and the last one did not return this money. Then we have cascade reaction or falling domino reaction. I will not be able to return money to the bank, and bank will become bankrupt. Partly these very parameters as eigenvector, page rank, and few others, cuts centrality, they take it into account, but not directly. You see, it is not direct. We cannot predict it or to understand it, and so we created some new indices. The first idea on this was I did, by the way, it might be interesting for political scientists. I created some years ago the models of power distribution in parliaments, taking into account classic indices like, for instance, Shapley-Owen index or Bantsov index, etc. They don't take into account the, let's say, desire of parties or members of parliament to coalesce. You see, they just evaluate the so-called combinatorial properties. You see, does this coalition have enough votes to pass the bill or not? But there is important part of the story that some coalitions some parties might never go into one coalition. And I created it was in 2007, I think, the first publication on this. I created this class of indices of where it takes into account the ability of parties to coalesce. It was applied in several articles, in several parliaments. And the first idea how to create this very centrality indices was borrowed from that very idea, you see, and mathematics there is rather complicated. And in December 2021, in America, our book was published with my former students about this new centrality indices. But this, what I will tell you now, these are new indices, you see, and these are rather new story. First publication is 2020. So the idea is very simple. You see, we consider these so-called critical groups, and critical group is critical if the influence of this group to the vertex, to the bank, for instance, is greater than quota, and quota is defined for each bank separately. It might be, for instance, some percentage of total capital or whatever, you see. In political things, this might be the number of votes for each party, okay? And then we have this bundle index, is the sum of these very indices, and in fact, we evaluate how many groups are influential for this very bank, groups of customers, for instance, etc. And pivotal index is just point out the pivotal vertices of the network, pivotal participants, on the following basis. If this pivotal bank, for instance, or pivotal borrower leaves the group, then group is not anymore critical. You see, their total borrowings, for instance, are less than quota, you see. And then we would like to know how many pivotal players influence our bank or our country, etc. Then this is the weighted pivotal index, and then we can evaluate it total influence. For instance, these are in degree index, bundle index, and pivotal index with, for instance, different weights. We might take them equal, then we mean that all these parameters influence total index in the same way, or we might say that we are more interested in pivotal players and put them into above, for instance. And then we applied this, and we intensively applied it to several applications, and I hope in 1 month I will be able to tell you about this application to some kind of to the decision analysis under deep uncertainty on the networks. And we applied it to international trade and international migration. And I will not go too much in details, but these are for these 4 periods for each top, no, not each, but top 10 countries. And we can see that, for instance, in 2016, we have a new results also. In 2016, by bundle index, most important country was France, then what is rather strange, Thailand, and more or less are distributed more or less equally. But in 2001, most influential was Germany, United States naturally, UK, and France. So in terms of degree index, top 10 countries, naturally the first important country is United States, then came China. China, look over here, you see it was very small in old times, and now it is the second one. And then comes Germany, etc. And migration model, what was really very interesting when we started to work on this, that it was, you see, we consider different periods. We have several publications on this. And this very quote, it was really very interesting situation with how to evaluate migrants. And in 2 or 3 countries, there were some in this very matrix was loop, you see. They considered people who came from Australia to Australia, for instance, as migrants. We did not understand what is going on, or from Spain to Spain. And then my students studied it very carefully. It turned out that if people from islands came to Australia, they are fixed as migrants with Australian passports. Or in Spain, for instance, if they live 8 years, as far as I remember, outside of Spain with Spain passport, and then came back to Spain, to the Spain, and they are considered as migrants, you see. It was also very interesting. Then we did this where the quote was taken. Yeah, well, there were some problems with data. We resolved it. This is a network of migration flows and countries, and we got this very total influence and bundle, etc. Germany in 2015 was at the first place, then United States, UK, you can see. And in terms of bundle index, again, Germany was the first, second was US. In Poland index, again, Germany and US. So there are also other projects I'm finishing. These are the list of projects we did. We did also some projects which, because of NDA, I cannot talk about them. For instance, very recently, we did very serious work this year, at the beginning of this year, or end of last year, beginning of this year. We did very serious work for one of the largest banks in Russia. They were very happy with this, and that's all. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I am ready to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your encouraging and presentation. If there is if there is a question, I will. I have a question. Maybe first question.
Yes, please.
You told about GAMS project.
Yes. If you wish, I can list over there.
Yes, 20 maybe.
Yes.
And after that, you told you conducted that project at Şişli province in Turkey.
In Istanbul.
Yes, could you please briefly describe this project?
It was the idea how to evaluate their problems and what to do with their problems, but I cannot talk too much about it because they asked me to keep it in complete secret, you see. They did not like to open these problems, and we did not publish anything, nothing, you see. We just gave them the software and that's all, you see, and they asked me not to talk too much about it. So I just gave the name without any details of explanation, but the idea is very simple. Yeah, maybe I will talk about some other province, not in Turkey, but in some other country. You see, for instance, we know that there is a province, for instance, and there are problems with roads, okay? There are, what is important, I always say that, you see, there are no two absolutely similar settlements. They have their problems. For instance, in Moscow, I always give this very example. In Moscow, there is a Domodedovo town near Moscow. It is on 40 minutes by train to Moscow. And if you ask people what are their problems, they never say work or whatever. They might say about clean city, quality of schools, etc. Because all of them are either working on the airport, which is nearby, or come to Moscow 40 minutes and they're in the center of Moscow, okay? But the similar town in Moscow region, Ruza, they don't have such good communication with Moscow. And if you go there and ask what are their problems, nobody will talk to you about schools or whatever. They will first say that work. You understand? Because of this communication problem. And then when you analyze this kind of things, you understand that what to do, you see, and there might be many solutions. Each solution costs something, each solution comes to some consequences, come to some results, you see. And then what we should do, we should choose the optimal or better solution. Optimal might be too difficult to find, but at least you see some good solution, which is good for citizen, good for budget, etc., etc. That is the very story about.
Thank you. But we can use the kind of models in the management of municipalities or provinces.
Yes, absolutely. And about this, I also would like to tell that, for instance, if you go to the municipality level, people, when you ask them what kind of problems they have, they might say that, for instance, garbage extraction or whatever. But at the regional level, nobody will tell you about this kind of things, you see. There are the goals are different, you see, and you have to take it into account.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
May I ask a question, Professor? Hi, my name is Sevgi Daksuzcu. I am working in the same department with Professor Yetkin Çınar. I would like to thank you first for your presentation. I'm not working on this area exactly, but I am working on spatial econometrics. which has a similar concerns with your area. You mentioned this classical centrality measures that they ignore some important aspects such as the place of nodes, the influence of these nodes in a network system. So, and you gave some examples from, for example, bankruptcy and migration and other origin destination flow examples. So spatial econometrics has some similar concerns. I would like to ask if there is a possibility to combine these new, your new centrality measures with spatial econometrics.
Yeah, very correct. It is very correct question, and we did it already, you see, in some kind of models, with econometric models, I mean, we insert as a parameters these centrality measures, new centrality measures into the econometric model, and it showed very interesting results, very nice results. So it is possible to combine, you see. This is here we play the role of, you know, like genetics, you see, to breed different kind of species. Yeah, and we might get a very good animal at the end.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Hello. Sesim geliyor mu acaba?
Gelir.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Fuad ALESKEROV, thanks for your contribution. I have a question about zero waste management. You know, sustainability, also zero waste manufacturing is very important in our lives. Decision-making laboratory, could we develop a framework? This laboratory also, can we use this laboratory as zero waste laboratory?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. You mean
to decrease negative impacts of on the environment generates by human activities. Can we use decision-making laboratory? Also, can we use this laboratory to make decision about climate changing, zero waste, sustainability subjects?
Sure, we did such kind of work. I did years ago for one of the regions of Russia. Then I was invited into United Nations as expert in ecology, and then after a few years I stopped it because it is very depressive, you see, to read all this data concerning this waste, etc. And then recently I came back to the problem, and especially for the North Seas. And the very last work, which will be presented in a couple of weeks in some foreign conference, is about this the oil spots in North Oceans. You see, I did some kind of work, you see, to evaluate it very fast. And we did different scenarios in the North Oceans, what it will be if we have this kind of linkage from tankers, etc. Naturally, the results are not very positive, but still, I can say that we need it because, you see, to prevent if such kind of thing happens, we have to know beforehand what to do. In fact, you see, let me tell you, maybe it will be helpful. In 1999, this very earthquake in Istanbul, near Istanbul, you know that the consequences was really very serious. I was in Istanbul, and next day we left for Moscow with my wife and child, and we heard about what was the results because we felt it, but we did not understand to which extent it is serious. You see, we left for Moscow next day, and in Moscow, every day we look that the number of victims increases. It was awful. And when we came back, there was some survey among the mayors of these small districts in Istanbul and nearby, and they were asked if the earthquake will happen again, how you prepare your district for this. And one of the mayors said that I bought 4,000 packs for dead people, you see. I was so badly influenced with this, you see, because in 20th century, end of 20th century, don't we have some kind of modeling, etc.? And we constructed a model which was published in the top journal at that time, it's Journal of Disasters, what to do with different scenarios of the earthquakes, you see.
I see.
The same thing might be applied to, for instance, to this ecological problems. What we did in this North Seas, for instance, if there is a linkage of oil in this place, it will be like this, or in that place like this, and what to do. You see, after that we can answer what to do in this case, you see. So, and important part of the story is that usually, you see, it is resolved by solving some very complicated systems of differential equations. It takes days to evaluate it, and I constructed very simple, very approximated scheme which works minutes. You see, if we have this very situation in minutes, we can understand how it will go further and to create some measures to prevent it, you see, at least to decrease influence, you see. That is the idea.
Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there is not any other question, we can.
Yetkin Kazım Bey would like to ask something.
Okay, please. I will give you the last words.
Hello everyone.
Okay. I did.
Beni duyuyor musunuz hocam? Can you hear me?
Duyuyorum, evet.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Çınar for this attempt. So this is a very progressive thing to do for to establish such a lab. Also, I would like to thank you for your interesting presentation. It was really nice. You present us 6 different cases. I would like to more like contribute rather than asking something about the network part. That network analysis, I think it is a really good feature for applying that one to evaluate future trade agreements. Maybe there is this research stream. Of course, there is trade ongoing, but also there are some potential agreements between the countries which are pending currently. Maybe this can be a really good tool for ranking these alternatives, I think. Rather than evaluating the current ones, I think for future potential agreements, it can be a very useful tool. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. Hocam, tebrikler, congratulations for your laboratory.
Thank you very much for this remark. Yetkin Bey, have it in mind, maybe in 1 month, I am ready to present some kind of work concerning this this network analysis under deep uncertainty applied to food insecurity. let's say.
Of course, you'll be very happy.
We now work on this. You know that in a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, it was a flood in Pakistan, and they say that 10 million people are out of food. You see, 10 million people. And we evaluate using this very network analysis, we evaluated all trades on food in of the whole world, and found that it is possible to resolve this problem with minimal consequences. So this might be interesting, but you should give me a bit time because we are finishing this work. We still don't have the text. We still don't have even presentation.
Of course, when you're
It's very, very, very new.
Yes, we'll be very happy to listen to you again here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and if we finish, I would like to also to say my congratulations, tebrikler, başarılar, Etincim. This is really great pleasure, and we can work together and do something positive.
Yes. Next year we'll be together. Okay. Thank you very much. See you. And thank you all the contributors. Thank you.